Now, when we keep saying slave trade, we are going against the ethics of African reparations. Good to see you all, and good to be here. Distinguished family members, community members, fellow panelists, allies, and enemies. Because we're all here. And if we think that we will be having this conversation in this country at this time without the counterinsurgents here, then we don't know what we're doing. So I want to begin. I am the Executive Director of the Maangamizi Educational Trust, which is the educational arm of the Stop the Maangamizi We Charge Genocide Ecocide campaign. And I'm saying this because it's important that you know this campaign. I'm glad that we are here 3 years later after the establishment of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for African Reparations. But part of the narrative that is being buried is the history of this struggle. And yes, it goes beyond this APPG. We've honoured and we should remember the work of our forerunners, especially in terms of parliamentarians, the late Bernie Grant MP, who was our voice in Parliament. And when he championed and took up the call for African reparations, as an African Guyanese MP in the British Houses of Parliament, he did so conscious of what this meant for our people. He wasn't representing Black Britain alone. He wasn't representing the Caribbean alone. He knew he had to stand for global Africa. And where we are at now, global Africa is being Caribbeanized. Our power base is being Caribbeanized. And this is within, and I am African Caribbean, by the way, born to parents born in the Caribbean, Guyana and Barbados specifically. I am a citizen of those countries. I'm born in the UK. And I say this because if we look at the narratives from the 1990s to now, they are totally different. So we are all using the word reparations, and that's good. But the meaning, as Lord Gifford mentioned, is different. Yeah? And that matters, because at this point and this juncture of our people's story, we have to contend with state capture, movement capture, and elite capture. Okay? And I'm saying this because many of our forebears died and were assassinated for this cause, including the late, great Chief Abiola, who helped sponsor the office of the late Bernie Grant, MP. Many people do not know that. He helped fund that reparations work of the African Reparations movement, which when the Organisation of African Unity took it up, it was a civil society cause. There was a group of 12 eminent persons, but it was a movement from below. And just as then, as is now, there are not only, Clive Lewis in his intro spoke about class. Yeah? We have class and we have national struggles in reparations. It's not just because we are all of African heritage and ancestry. We are not all representing the same thing. Okay? Even elected officials. So yes, whilst it's good that reparations is coming out of many people's mouths, we have to be very careful to safeguard the integrity, the ethics, the values and the principles of our African ancestors that live on in us, and who rebel and who resist this objectification of dehumanization of who they are. So may I humbly suggest,
Suggested.
the first thing that we need to do is to repair our own epistemologies, our own knowledge framework. No one should be referring to a slave trade. It was not a slave trade. It was a Mangamizi. Professor Malena Karenga talks about the African Holocaust of enslavement. Some of you will know the term Ma'afa. But Ma'angamizi speaks to the intentional destruction of a people, but we're still here. Ethnocide and genocide, as coined by Dr. Raphael Lemkin, were intended to be used interchangeably. So ethnocide is where you exist, but you don't have your name, you don't have your language, you don't know your people's culture, you are not in touch with your lineage, you define yourselves by the identities of your European colonizers and enslavers. So we call ourselves these identities today according to whose knowledge framework? Who defined the world? Who called countries what they are that we are now defining our identities by? Where is our connection to our ancestors? We poured libation to give us that humility to connect with them. And some of us react when we hear this terminology. Even though we've got the knowledge producers, we've got INASAR, the International Network of Scholars and Activists for African Reparations in 2017. Grassroots activists from here challenged academics for using this term slave trade. And it was decided we should not be using it. That battle was won. Even many academics racialized as white are arguing this point. Okay? Now when we keep saying slave trade, we are going against the ethics of African reparations. We had Professor Malena Karenga at our last year's conference, and he spoke about this. He spoke about what it means when you say a slave trade. You reduce the morally monstrous destruction of life, culture, and human possibility to this issue of a bilateral exchange, that there was just somebody who benefited more than the others. And we open ourselves up to a challenge to our global claim.
Absolutely.
So those of us waging this struggle must also study and learn, and we must correct ourselves. We must self-prepare. We have to. Our ancestors were human beings. They were not slaves. They were conscious of their humanity, and they were conscious of everything that was happening to them.
That's right.
Let me...
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
We had to get those preliminaries out of the way. I know I've got 2 minutes, but it's really hard. It's really hard because a lot needs to be said.
Take half hour, take half hour.
No, hold on. So when I'm quoting here a line from Akala's Mangamizi track that was inspired by our work in the Stop the Mangamizi campaign. In 2012, he produced this track. When the truth is told and there is a dignity to remember the dead, meaning our ancestors, because as long as they are distorting the past, it means they have the intention of doing it again. Yes. So even in our lifetime, history, our story, her story, is being rewritten. And if some of us were not here, you would not know the role that we played. When we went to our sister, Belle Ribeiro Adi MP, and lobbied her to set up this APPG because we had constituents who had signed the Stop the Mangamizi We Charge Genocide Ecocide petition, over 25,000 people and counting, that we knew we were accountable and answerable to. Yes, and we said this is what they want. And what did that petition ask for? One of two things. The All-Party Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry for Truth and Reparatory Justice. And we did so, having previously lobbied Green Party members. Why? Because they came to the African Emancipation Day Reparations March in 2019, Scott Ainsley MP, and said, what can we do? And we said, our people need their voices heard. They want a commission of inquiry. This is international law. We are survivors MPs, and we have a right to speak our truths and to tell our narrative. And that is the demand, but it is being ignored. Ignored. Last year's Conference Declaration, I have it here, it's not on the website, Madam Chairperson Bell, anymore. I don't see it. But the last line that we asked people to commit to last year, we urge that this dialogue takes place by establishing an all-party parliamentary commission of inquiry for truth and reparations. Where is it? Where is the action? Part of what we intended and we hoped would happen with this ACKNOWLEDGEMENT, as we call it, the All-Party Parliamentary Group for African Reparations, is this commission. We can take action on this demand of our people right now. We can set that example and show leadership. Reparations motions were passed in Islington, in Lambeth, for atonement and reparations for Britain's role in the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved Africans, and by Bristol City Council. Okay? We did that. But yet, many of our elected officials are not listening to us. So my people, this is important, why we are here. This all-party parliamentary group for African reparations is historic because it is creating a space to hear the different narratives. But you have to know that you have a right to be heard. And when you are lobbying your MPs, please go beyond the letter that is in here. And it might, please, I'm a member of this secretariat with Brother Kofi, but we would have expected to see a recognition of the demand for the All-Party Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry for Truth and Reparatory Justice or Reparations in this letter. That is important, okay? It's not just about what's happening in the Caribbean or Africa. We are here and we have to hold our elected officials to account to the African reparations agenda. I close.
Education is preparation for reparations.